All right. So our next talk is going to be a regulatory update with new populations, quarantines, pesticide restrictions, federal and state efforts for control. And this is with Paul Kurtz, entomologist for New Jersey Department of Agriculture. And so as a bio, Paul has been working for the New Jersey Department of Agriculture for over 24 years as an entomologist. He has supervised large programs such as the Asian Longhorn Beetle Program, New Jersey Forest Pest Outreach and Survey, and Plumpox virus programs. Recently, he has focused his attention on the Emerald Ash Borer and Spotted Lanternfly programs. Paul also writes and executes various federal surveys throughout the state for non-native pests in forests and crops. In 97 through 98, he worked for the Philip E. Marucci Center for Blueberry and Cranberry Research and Extension as a research technician in the area of crop pests. Paul also has a BS in biology from Stockton University, a BA from Drew University, and sustainable development and postgraduate education at Northeastern/Yale School of Forestry and Sustainable Development and Tropical Biology based in Costa Rica. To date, also, he has traveled to 87 countries worldwide. That is an impressive stat. So thank you, Paul, for being here today. And I can go ahead and turn over to you. So, Paul, it looks like you're on mute right now. Oh.
I have a little trouble with my video. Perfect.
All right, we can see you.
Green here. Okay, everybody. So we're going to kind of get the basics of the spotted lanternfly, and had a little trouble. My laptop didn't want to work with me, so I'm doing it different. My desktop here. So we're going to go like what we're doing here in New Jersey, as well as some of the lessons we learned, and for all the states that are either experiencing it or I would say going to experience it. As you saw the maps, there's a couple things I would encourage you to do prior. So let's get into this. Okay, so spotted lanternfly is a plant hopper from Asia, specifically found in China, India, Vietnam. And then we look at South Korea, Japan, and the United States. It is an invasive pest. So although that, we're the only ones outside of the, Southeast Asia, we're kind of doing a lot of research and getting things coordinated for the rest of the country. So it belongs in the family Phagoridae, in the order Hemiptera. It is not a fly. I know a lot of people, when I talk to them, they refer it to as the fly. And most hemipterans feed on plants using their piercing and sucking mouth parts. So again, this is a true bug. And when you're looking at some of the things out there as far as sprays, that's one of the things to look for, that if it is registered for a, the hemipteran or a plant hopper. Wrong way. So adults, we were looking at the adults and saying that because we thought they're kind of a poor flyer, but what we've seen here in New Jersey is that at the port, there's about a 10-knot wind and it was still going there. So that what they normally do is they get to a nice high point and they glide and they catch those thermals, go around. So I know we see them on the ground and they jump, but also remember how they can easily catch those thermals. And, when I look at all these storms coming up, especially these nor'easters coming up through New Jersey, and I wonder, so where did spotted lanternfly go? And you got to remember, they're going in all different directions. And besides, as Eric mentioned, the human mediated transport, this is a really good way for it to, get to other states quickly and areas that you're not expecting. Adults can be seen as early as mid-July. August, they switch over to focus on Tree of Heaven. And during this time in August is kind of when it's just a feeding period. They will feed, you know, Atlantis altissima, Wilsoness in the later summer, early September. And then the egg laying begins in September, continues to the onset of winter. So we have a really strong killing frost of several days. Adults often cluster in groups to feed, mate, and lay eggs. Their life cycle is univoltine, which is 1 generation a year. And I know there's because of the brown marmorated stink bug, everyone thinks that they're going to overwinter in their attics, just like the stink bug, but they do overwinter only as eggs. Because they have poor muscle strength in their mouth parts, they are known as a force feeder. The turgor pressure of the plant is what makes the sap kind of go into their mouth. And so there's possibly that it can vector a disease such as a phytoplasm. There's still some more research on this, but previously that we weren't sure about the any vectoring of diseases. One thing to look at right here where I'm pointing are these 2 valvifers. Those will indicate that this is a female. Nymphs, I joke, they come in basically 2 flavors. You know, when you look at on the left-hand side, the first and third instar are the black with the white spots. And then our 4th instar before it metamorphosizes into the adult is going to be that nice bright red, kind of stating that, you know, the warning colors of potentially I do not taste very good. Nymphs have a much wider host range than compared to the adults. They tend to hop to avoid prey. Just like the adults, they have excellent eyesight. You can kind of make them follow you around. They prefer to feed in larger groups, and they feed on the phloem of the soft new tissue. You'll see the smaller adults like the 1st and 2nd instar, especially on the more herbaceous plants, a lot of weeds, and they do produce copious amounts of honeydew. And there's some indication that change from the black into the red is because they switch over to Tree of Heaven and they start feeding on Tree of Heaven, and they may be taking in some of those cytotoxic metabolites in Tree of Heaven. So again, a little bit more research to confirm that. Egg masses, if you haven't seen them, we have they're between 30 and 50 eggs in 4 to 7 vertical rows. Females can lay up to 3 eggs. So I tell everybody when they go, well, what's one, if you know, we don't like to say the word kill, but if you dispose of one insect, what does it make a difference? Because I get that question all the time. You go, well, that is between 30 and 50 times 3 that you will not see next year. So that makes people a little bit more apt to be able to stomp them out, because they do see a positive effect in the future. That waxy covering that you see there is a protein. They figured that out this past year, and they're approximately 1 inch in size. Uncovered egg masses, so you're going to have a variety out there in the field, and you're going to have females that didn't fully cover them, partially covered them, and then you have the third full covering, and then you'll see these, which are going to be these little like hatch that were the nymph, the first instar came out of the egg, and if you see anything more round, that is going to be some type of parasitism, and I think we'll be all interested in, if you do have any pictures of that. We have, during our winter treatment, we do scrape and treat these egg masses with golden oil. I wanted to put this out there because I know a lot of people assume the United States is a lot different than most of the world, although that we have a, a boreal, a temperate, and kind of a subtropical, with most of the US. So does this big swath, and this is where we're seeing a lot of pests that come from. So just give you an idea of where we are compared to the rest of the world, and part of North America. And I don't know why that shifted. It should be up a little bit on my slide. So this is the native range, where you're going to see the Laos, and this is going to be Cambodia, Vietnam. So this is the area when you kind of go back over here and you're going in this area right in here. So they're going to do very well here in the United States, because a lot of this area is more temperate forest. Up in this area is montane forest. So, we do have a lot of the same environments as it's in its host range. I know Eric mentioned, the potential spread, and this is the potential distribution using MAXENT of spotted lanternfly. And it kind of gives you, and these are major, if you look, these are major growing areas as well in the United States. So as we move forward, and why we have such a concerted effort, especially here in New Jersey, to make sure that we are not, sending any of these insects out of state, this is it. This is the potential impact on, our food, or not necessarily our food, but basically our environment. This is our current US distribution. And the stranger thing is we had this way out here in Indiana, and this past week, we had a picture of a 4th instar nymph, and we in here are only seeing 2nd and 3rd instar. So it's a little puzzling. You got to look at, how is that going to change their biology as they move further west and have a different climate regime, and is that going to speed up or possibly slow down their life cycle? So this is the thing I think where we should have done a little bit more thought in New Jersey, and it's coming up with a good reporting tool. And I say create an online reporting tool or application for the public. We went to a phone number initially, and what a nightmare that became. We had a number of callers. Our mailboxes would be full by Friday, but it's by close of business. People couldn't do it over the weekend, and then on Monday they would be calling the office. We were always playing catch up with the phone. So an online tool is a much better way to handle this. And again, when we also went into the email world, and with the email world, everybody expects an email back or some kind of recognition. Again, this is very time consuming. It's going to, if you have a huge staff, it is kind of helpful, but even with that, you're looking at thousands of emails over the course of the season, and it just becomes pretty untenable. So to make more happy, clients, and to actually gather useful data for this, for analysis, that we've been giving our data to, I can't think of his name right now, but over at Drexel in Temple in Philadelphia to do these maps. It also eliminates human error in transcription, last names, phone numbers, you name it. Also gives you the ability to create your own maps, and it's very easy to develop in the Esri Survey 123. So this is one of the things that if you don't have, I strongly encourage you to develop, and what you have is going to be useful for the next big pest. So, you develop one landing page, like we have the badbug.nj.gov, that is our landing page, and then you can click on individual insects or diseases. So this is coming out of our reporting tool, and what you're seeing on the right is the raw data. And when I saw that the first time, like probably what you were all saying, oh my God. And but then when we processed it, this is the data on the right. And it gives us a really good understanding of what we're, where we're seeing the heaviest infestations, as well as, where should we be targeting, certain resources. The only negative side to this is that we told people on in this part of the state, as well as some down here, to stop reporting because we were aware. So I think it's a little skewed because of that. But in the course of one season, I got almost 13,000 at 112,613. So imagine that. That's just online reports, somebody handling that over that season. Again, it becomes untenable. And in this way, you are gathering excellent data. So it also gives you, timing trends. So for your state, it'll tell you exactly when your peak is. Right now, last year was August 3rd. So that fits perfectly in with, what we expect. It also allows us to do a little analysis. And this is going to be one of our GIS team did this. Here we go. And you're going to see over time, it's unavailable. Sorry. It should have auto-populated all this to give you the sense of what's going on over the course of the season. And it also gives you what we did in our data is to give you a sense of where are we reporting? Is this a residential? Do we have farms? Our concern over the ports, parks, whether it's state or county, and then other, which could be anything. And we realized that 75% of this were our homeowners. So it became for me clear that we had to make sure that the homeowners had enough resources to handle this. This is our current quarantine, all but up here in the north, and then here on the coast. As you saw on the map before, that doesn't mean we don't have it there. It's just that that area is not under quarantine. We have spotted lanternfly in all our counties. I have them right around by my house, so we're everywhere. But how does the quarantine impact New Jersey? So it's the limited movement. So we enacted a quarantine to make sure that we are not transporting this, to other parts of the state, as well as not, sharing this with any of our other states. So with our quarantine, we did limited movement of articles from inside the quarantine to outside the quarantine. And this is any means of conveyance. So, you don't realize SLF is an amazing hitchhiker. And what you're going to see is that it will get on everything and anything. And when I mean anything, anything. So, I grew up at the shore. We are seeing people that live in Pennsylvania that may have a house down by the beach, bringing their boats back and forth. You're looking at RVs. Our RV industry here are well aware. I reach out to them periodically just to keep them updated. But what are our regulated articles? It's any living stage of SLF, landscaping, firewood, packing material, outdoor articles, boats, lawnmowers, you name it, grills. We've had everything from the porta potties for concerts and main events to stock cars because they go into covered trailers, you name it. When I mean anything, it is anything. And as you can see on the tire, those are hundreds of fourth instar nymphs. And it doesn't matter. It could be these are going to be egg masses right here on park benches. You know, they lay them on the honeybee, oh my God, hives. So they're just everywhere. So whatever they can lay a surface on, they will. So how do we, slow the spread and make sure that we are not sharing this? We instituted permits. We're following best management practices. We're educating staff. That's not only our staff, but making sure that all different, and that's from nursery industry to chemical companies that ship. We have trained, all different types of industry. And that's the thing, is you got to remember, this isn't just a green industry issue. It is anybody that ships anything. So we looked at heavy machinery, some of the big cranes and excavators that are rented and go out of state, waste disposal. There are all kinds of ways that this can move, to new areas. We have, one of the risks is we're going to get external quarantines. And we're looking at, state and national. California and Canada have, and I believe Oregon has one as well. So it's going to require more phytosanitary inspections, state and federal. It's going to, additional treatment as far as chemicals, and additional cost to the shipper, and eventually to the, passed on to the consumer. We have environmental impacts, as well as just sooty mold that will, impact everyone, that has anything outside. Our hosts, as Eric mentioned, that Lawrence Bittinger, he has come up with 172 different species of woody and herbaceous plants. And take a look at that. It is so many, everything under the sun. And one of our concerns was, can it develop without tree of heaven? And it can. So with all those things you got, and knowing, that has a huge host range, what do we do? We look at tree of heaven, and the range of tree of heaven is all the way into subarctic. So we look at where isn't tree of heaven. It's going to be a couple states. And then for us in New Jersey, some of our key hosts, and this is going to be after generally in September, that we're finding are a lot of egg masses on, be red maple, river birch, willow, redbud, and sycamore. And we have inspectors. That's a tool that we kind of developed, which is just the smaller paint roller on the end, and because it's got different curves, it makes it so when you're scraping the eggs, you're actually crushing them. And that's the important thing. You really want to crush the eggs while you're scraping them, and not just scrape them. And if you are scraping them, make sure you're putting them into some kind of disposable bag, double bag, they're fine. So hosts, this is, and this is part of from Penn State, that, this gives you an idea throughout the season, or their season. And a lot of times we refer to hot trees. Well, hot trees are believed based on their turgor pressure and or nutrients. That's when you go out there and you find a bunch of Ailanthus, and there's only 4 Ailanthus trees out of 10 that are covered in lanternfly. And there's some on the other ones, but those are what we refer to as hot trees. And you may, if you're doing trapping or doing anything, you may have to adjust your traps to those trees. So be mindful if you are setting up any of the traps, sticky bands, or the other traps that you are aware of, hot trees and I guess not so hot trees. So with all that, we had to prioritize our efforts here in New Jersey, and we saw transportation, our seaports, airports, railroads are a big thing, interstate highways, and commercial trucking companies. We also were with agricultural industries, and then anything else. So this is the way that, you know, we thought this is going to have the biggest impact of spreading spotted lanternfly. So when we look at the economic damage of all that, the lanternfly shows a strong preference for both wild and cultivated grapes. And we looked at Pennsylvania, and they had 70–90% of vine death from feeding stress, as well as winter injury. And again, it may vector a phytoplasm in the grapes. So, you know, more to come on that. Economic damage, this is going to be, you know, interference with trade nationally and internationally, the impact of different markets, and, you know, through commodities that, you know, we ship to other areas, as well as the costs of the compliance agreements, the phytosanitary certificates, and additional chemical treatments. So again, this is all going to increase because of, you know, this invasive species. One of my concerns is the ecological damage. So you have the heavy populations can cause lots of sooty mold because of their excrement, the honeydew, and that is going to impact the understory of forests. And as you can see in the bottom picture, you're going to get this whole sooty mold that is going to, you know, reduce that native understory, and then on the trees above is going to be that mold that's going to be growing out of it. It's a mat of mold, and that will, you know, hopefully that's a tree of heaven that will kill that tree. But you're going to have all these negative impacts on your native understory, which will then allow non-natives to come in, and, you know, succession will replace all that, and again change that whole ecosystem by, you know, from the soil chemistry, the type of plants, and, you know, eventually you know, change that entire ecosystem. For us as homeowners, this is going to be a nuisance pest. On the left there is going to be that sooty mold I referred to. It is on decks, lawn furniture, cars, sides of homes, you name it. It will also impact the landscape around it, because that all that honeydew will stop the photosynthesis of your you know, your planted plants, your landscape plants, and then all that sugar brings in unwanted pests such as yellow jackets. So again, no one's going to get away from this insect. We look at control. Neonicotinoids here in New Jersey are going to, I think, December, that homeowners are no longer allowed to purchase them, and all our, you know, big box stores and everything are going to be pulling them off the shelves. But we still have pyrethrins, organophosphates, and one of the gentlemen at Penn State came up with a pretty high control model that we would have to go over 93% to reduce the population. At 93%, we're keeping the population at status quo, what it is now, but anything over that is going to reduce, which is a very tall order. If you've seen this insect, and, you know, you really don't find them until they are in their adult phase, most times in the outer environments. So what are we doing here in New Jersey for pesticides? We're using dinotefuran as a systemic. Bifenthrin, we're using bifen as a contact right now, and then beta-cyfluorin as a for structures, only structures. Golden pest oil is a contact that is used only for egg masses, and we're using that either by spraying it on or by using like a paintbrush kind of mechanism. And although we've gone away from it, our herbicides that we have used in the past are Garland 3 and 3A and 4. 4 has the oil in it. And that's all that we are using here in New Jersey, both the USDA and NJDA, you know, as far as our chemical control. Our timing for nymphs, we've kind of switched things around, and we're doing a contact in the earlier spring for the nymphs, and then about middle of June to end, you know, 3rd week of June, after the tree of heaven is no longer pollinating, we're going to go into the systemic of the transect, the dinotephorin, and then in the fall we switch again once they go to, you know, away from tree of heaven, and we only use dinotephorin on tree of heaven. So once the tree of heaven senesces, we no longer use that. And what we're doing is we change that focus, so we're putting it later on in the season, so we know we'll have a greater kill of and control of the adults later on in the fall. So that's why we've changed our plan. And then, you know, in the winter time, we focus on egg scraping as well as treating with golden pest oil, December and April through April. And I think it's above 44 degrees. But that's what, you know, we're doing here chemically. And then we're using circle traps. Circle traps work well with both the adults and nymphs. What's great about them is that there's no lure, no pesticide. It uses their own biology. They crawl up in here, go up into this bag, and pretty much will die in that bag. You can see this one is covered in honeydew. You know, I would tell you, if you do use these, that, you know, switch them out every 2 weeks. They smell bad, as well as, you know, it kind of gives you an idea, it gives you, you know, basically like a sentinel project to know your populations. I have it every 3, but once you get into the heavy part where you're seeing something like this with adults, I would tell you to go every 2. Then we have native biocontrol. As we've mentioned, we've had you know, wheel bugs that have been going after praying mantis, which is kind of non-native, going after non-native, spiders, birds, you know, the corvids, the blue jays, and the ravens and such. Also the lacewing have been parasitizing the eggs a little bit, but we haven't seen a lot of that. Additional biocontrol is Eupelmid Anastatis orientalis, and that's coming out of South Korea. And then 2 different dryinids. The dryanid Xinicus is, I guess, the one, and that one's going to go after your nymph. And with these big raptorial arms right here, just like the praying mantis, it will grab the nymph and lay both eggs right under here, which would be your wing bud. And so like aliens, they, you know, they'll use this as their, since it's a parasitoid, you know, and it's going to use its host as its you know, food, and hopefully spread more of these small parasitoid wasps, and, you know, we'll have some control in the future. We also are looking into some of the biopesticides, antipathogenic fungus, the Bovaria bassiana, you know, some trade names is apprehended botanigard. The Bacoa major is another fungus, and again, you know, it has a different, how it impacts. It'll flip the insect, and then it'll have those sporulating bodies come out of the abdomen. And again, this is all with wind and rain driven. You do need some you know, rain event and moisture for this stuff to work. But the only negative side to this is that it is non-target specific. So it is anything that has, you know, that, because it's infected through the cuticle, it goes through that chitin, so it's any insect. So it will impact pollinators and butterflies, or I mean honeybees and butterflies. This is our join the battle, beat the bug, our battle cry. This is, what we're asking people to do throughout the season. Again, coming out of Penn State. So on the research end of things, I know everyone's thinking, how do we do an aerial spray? But they're not really all that effective because they are a plant feeder. The foliage prevents the chemical to contact the spotted lanternfly. And you also have a lot of non-targets, it's non-target specific. So you could have the loss of a lot of beneficials. So they're looking only about 5% of the material that, would be an aerial spray would be able to touch the lanternfly. So then you have, some other things, the Ovaria bassiana, the backcoat major, antipathogenic nematode formulation, where you're spraying nematodes and they will go through the spiracles, the breathing tubes, and get into the host and kind of, feed on them through that way and then spread more nematodes. Julie Urban out of Penn State has found a endosymbiotic bacteria, 3 different bacteria that have developed 3 specialized organs in the spotted lanternfly. So if there is a way to either break, be able to get basically an antibiotic in there to go after the bacteria, you would have, they would basically starve to death, because what the bacteria do is they transform all that sugar they're eating with the sap into amino acids. So it would, effectively, starve them to death. And there's also the mechanism that the organs transfer the bacteria into the egg. So if there's a way to, in that part of the life cycle, to be able to block that transference, again, Julie's a brilliant woman and a great scientist, and if anyone's going to find it, she will. But those are the, I think, fascinating parts of this insect. There's also looking at some of the Versilium wilt. The Versilium non-alfalfa is it's a native species to the US, and it will go after tree of heaven under, they've been testing it under field conditions. It's a way to reduce that. But again, the, concern of having tree of heaven dying, knowing that it's all next to a lot of the trains, tracks and highways, tree of heaven prefers disturbed areas. That's a little worrisome, but a way to, again, to combat maybe in areas where it wouldn't have a huge impact. For us here in New Jersey, we have, approached our county parks, our mosquito commission, and some of our county public works to work with us. We wound up getting some state funding, and we are now working with these entities to do some spraying when they have free time in their programs. And this looks like it's going to be a really beneficial relationship for us. We also work with Rutgers, for them for research and to help us if on our projects. And then USDA, we are hand in hand here in New Jersey. We've always have been, and I think that relationship, has had a lot of positive impact here. And we do work with the outreach with our local groups, environmental groups. And I think I should have put a little bit more of our outreach, especially I'm the one doing it, that, a lot of that and getting that message out there to the public is how you're going to really be able to have that reported, as well as what people go, oh, that's a pretty bug, but know that they should dispose of it. And so what I did find interesting over the last year, over the pandemic, that we did find out that adults and nymph are not that active in the morning. They are not really active until 10 a.m., which is counterintuitive to how a a lot of our farmers spray because they spray early in the morning to avoid any of the wind and drift. They've also think that because I mentioned they have excellent vision, they may have visual aggregation behavior. And what's really fascinating is they have a thermal signature. So it is an exothermic, and it may be that is from the bacteria in the gut. No, I think that was Julie's idea, but I would have to confirm. But yes, they do have a signature. So if you have a FLIR camera or a thermal camera, you can see the lanternflies at night. And that's it. I'm ready for any questions.
Great. Well, thank you for that presentation, Paul. Just going to go ahead and switch over to this screen now. All right. So we got a couple questions that came through. First question is from Chip. Will New Jersey allow the use of neonics, specifically mentioning dinotefuran and imidacloprid, for spotted lanternfly management under the infestation clause in the recent pesticide ban?
I do not know. I'll be honest. I know there's some, because if it's for agricultural use, yes. I think there's some questions regarding the tree industry as well as landscaping. So I think that is going to be, it's a DEP decision, and everybody, I know that both industries hope that they will change that, so they can use it as well.
Good answer. And Sonia, looks like wanting a little bit more clarification in regards to kind of a spotted lanternfly permit holder. Can you elaborate on that, the permit?
Okay, yeah. So Penn State and Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture developed a permit system, and everybody decided that why reinvent the wheel. And I don't know how many are using the Penn State model, but we go through training. We ask our businesses to take, it's a 2-hour or so training course, and it only needs to be one person in your organization. So let's say you're a waste disposal company and you have 300 people in there. We ask, let's say, the main person that's going to be in charge of all the trucks to take that course, and then to be a trainer and make sure that all those operators are aware of what to do, what the insect looks like. Here in New Jersey, we'll provide them, any materials, that they would need. We don't have a lot. I think, Penn State is the resource for most of that. But yeah, we require, and it's businesses that are going to move anything out of state, or before it was going to be intrastate, any of the between the areas that are infested, and now that pretty much every county is infested here in New Jersey. I don't know how appropriate that is, but I think it's going to be mostly for anybody shipping anything out of our state, and especially to states that have external quarantines, California, Oregon, and Canada right now that I'm aware of. So it's just a training course, and it just shows that you are aware of best management practices for spotted lanternfly.
Yeah, and I can say that I've taken that Penn State course myself. As you indicated, it's pretty short, and a really great educational thing, kind of going through the information with it. And it's just a really good practice, as you're indicating, Paul, whenever you're kind of moving stuff in and out of quarantine areas, and even for places who, for those individuals on this webinar today, if SLF is not in your area, it might even be good to just take the course now, just to familiarize yourself with some of the methods to potentially implement when it gets over in your area.
And I agree. I think that being prepared for this insect pest that, you can't do enough, because once you have it, you're going to go, oh, we should have maybe done this or done that. If you're ready, you're already ahead of the game. So I concur.
Yeah. All right. So looks like Jay had some questions about biologicals helping with control, specifically around the Bovaria strains. And it looks like right after he sent that, you did start talking about Bovaria. But a follow-up to that, any idea on the frame from contact to mortality for Bovaria major and Bassiana?
I do not. I know Cornell, and they're doing research on it. And why can't I think of the woman's lab? She's doing it, and maybe working with, I would look at Penn State as well. I know Cornell, Anne, I can't think of her last name. Cornell is doing most of the research on that, on the Bovaria and the Bacoa. So, it's a great way. It's a good way for, I think, our organic farms. It gives them a tool in their toolbox. The only problem, again, is going to be that it is non-target specific, and they will need some type of rain event and have a certain level of humidity for that, the fungal pathogen to do its job.
Yeah. And it looks like Rachel has a question. Is there a reference paper for the bacteria work that Julie Urban is working on?
I don't know. I would reach out to Julie. She's fabulous, and she can explain it. I said, I think it's probably it's really incredible. I know she said that that whole endosymbiotic relationship started about 270 million years ago. And Julie has her PhD in evolutionary biology of lanternflies. So she is definitely the person to talk to.
Yeah, and I can say that Julie is very approachable. She's incredibly knowledgeable, does some really great talks. So if anyone is interested in her work, I would encourage you to contact her directly. Hear from the source. And Dan Gilrain just commented here, it's Anne Hayek at Cornell.
Thank you. Thank you, Anne Hayek. I'm terrible with names. I apologize.
No worries. All right, so we have Mary asking a question. Can you describe the quarantine procedures for Frederick County, Virginia? Who is impacted?
That would have to be Virginia, and Eric would probably be best to ask for that, just because it's a different state. I'm here in New Jersey. What we look at is that, like I had mentioned earlier, is all those articles that we're concerned about being moved, and I'm sure they have similar concerns. And I would reach out to the Virginia Department of Agriculture and see what their exact wording is.
Yeah, hi. I'll post in the links for Virginia. The quarantine language is in Virginia is similar to what it is for New Jersey. No moving a spotted lanternfly, no moving a plant material infested with spotted lanternfly, and conveyances, so trucks, etc. The permit process is for Virginia. You take an online course provided by Virginia Tech, or you can take the Pennsylvania training, either one, and you get your detection credentials, and then you apply to the Virginia Department of Agriculture for a permit. They then send you a self-inspection check sheet, and you are also expected to train all of your employees at that company. So one person per company. And so then you will use an inspection. So the inspection sheet is pretty straightforward. Most people use it as put it on, laminate it, use a dry erase marker, fill out the inspection sheet, date it, take a picture of it, carry that with them when they carry their load out. So that way you're covered. But so that's in a nutshell. I'll post some of the links here in the Q&A for Virginia. Hope that answers the question.
Perfect. I'm glad that you're still on. That worked out pretty well. Thanks, Eric. Okay. So we have another question from Stephen. What has been the reported percentage of efficacy against spotted lanternfly egg masses when applying golden oils?
Here in New Jersey, we just started doing it, so I don't know if all the data is in, and I would probably suspect that to come more towards the fall while they do the analysis, because like I said, we just started using it this past season, so I don't think that we have that yet, or at least it's not confirmed. So I would wait a little bit, and again, you're not going to be using it until, next December. So you have a little time.
Sure. Okay. And it looks like that is all of the questions that we have. And then if people look in the chat, you'll see that Eric Day just posted the spotted lantern link for spotted lanternfly permit training. He said, encourage all of you to take a look at that if you haven't yet. Really great resource there. So perfect. Well, thank you for your presentation, Paul. Really appreciate that update. And yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you.